All right, y'all. How's everyone doing today? I can't see many of you, but I hope you're doing well. Some of you joined us on Tuesday for the managing revenue streams, and some of you did not. So I will try not to be super redundant for those of you who are here on Tuesday, but I just want to quickly go over the agenda with you of what we'll be covering today. We have already done the housekeeping, so y'all know the deal. Feel free to chat, like Ashley said, if you have any questions. We're gonna have introductions by our awesome guests, Zach and Neil. I'll introduce myself as well, and then we're gonna do a quick little icebreaker breakout session. We're gonna come back together, share what we learned from that, and then you'll hear from myself, Zach, and Neil. And then after that, we'll do a couple more breakout sessions, and then we'll wrap. All right, cool. So the goal for this webinar, just to be clear, is for you to kind of understand and start thinking about what it means to sell to wholesale accounts as well as restaurants, and what I like to call high-end wholesale, which is something kind of in the middle. And I think that Zach really represents that with Fresh Harvest. Also, I would love for you all to get some direct feedback. Use this as an opportunity to talk to Neil and Zach. Yeah, and so that's kind of where we're going with the goals here. Let me really fast move this over here. Okay. All right. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren Cox. I run the Farmer Restaurant Program at Georgia Organics, and I am the Organic Procurement Coordinator. So what that means is I help farmers become restaurant ready or wholesale ready. I help with on-farm systems. I also help with matchmaking whenever it's appropriate, and farmers need support in moving their product. So I'm here to set you all up for success in getting your stuff to eaters and to these two guys whose pictures are beside me. All right, I will let, I think I said Zach, I will let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here to talk about some of this stuff. It's just crazy cool to be able to gather with a lot of growers at once. Usually this is a lot of different phone calls over the space of, or a span of months. So this is a great opportunity for me and for Fresh Harvest as well. So Fresh Harvest, quick version, started in 2012. Our whole goal was just to make, how do we automate healthy eating, make it convenient, and while doing that, support the local growers in and around Georgia. So we like to think of it as an online version of the farmers market in town that all y'all already probably sell to in different ways, shapes, or forms. And so our goal is to expand the sales outlets of the growers that we work with. We would never set up a booth at a farmer's market and say, hey, sign up for Fresh Harvest, because our goal is to say, hey, how do we bring this food to more people who aren't already here? We're based in Clarkston. We deliver our produce directly to individuals' homes through these, some say ugly, some say beautiful green totes in and around town. And we work with the smallest, farms in town to a lot of larger farms as well. And the puzzle pieces are all put together in our baskets every week. Last thing, a really key internal metric for us is the percentage of local cost of goods that's going out the door from our warehouse every week. So our goal is always to keep that at least 80%, which is one that we've been able to stick to here in recent years. So yeah, we want to move more of that, and that's why having these kind of conversations are so great for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Neil, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone. My name's Neil. I am the operations and procurement lead at Common Market Southeast. I am fairly new to the organization. I started in November, but I do have a past history of working in food and agriculture in and around Atlanta and Georgia as well. Common Market is a nonprofit food distribution organization, and we mainly serve institution partners. And I'll get into that more later, but things like schools, universities, hospital systems, and so we work. We're located in East Point, and so we have a warehouse down here, and we work with same as Zach said. We have small farms. We work with larger farms. It really is a lot dependent on what our customers are looking for. Yeah, we work with any farm. We have a set of farmer guidelines, and we try and stick to those as close as possible. And so our network mostly reaches most of Georgia and Alabama, and that's where we're focused right now. And our organization started in Philadelphia. So we have a regional food hub in Philadelphia. We have one in Atlanta, which is the one I obviously work at, and then we also have one in Houston. So we have a bit of a wider network of people as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. So before we get into the thick of it and give you guys all of this information, we're going to have a little breakout session. So bear with us. In this breakout session, you all, please feel free to turn on the video so we can see your faces. I will be in a room with either Zach or Neil, and Kayla will be in a room with Zach or Neil. Facilitate. We are just going to do some introductions really quick. So farm name, where you're located, what you grow or raise, whether you have sold wholesale before, about in the webinar with Zach and Neil. And then there's going to be a breakout later on, like I said, to where we can ask those questions, but just kind of putting that out there so we can marinate on that. Cool. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing so many faces. This is great. I hope everyone's breakout session went well. Does someone in my group want to share out some of the stuff that we talked about?
I can if no one wants to speak up.
All right.
This is Howard Burke with LJ Mushrooms. I think the consensus was that some of us are new and that haven't sold wholesale yet and don't know if our farms are big enough to sell. Some of us have sold wholesale. We're also trying to figure out what type of packaging wholesale is looking for, how to pick up volume through a wholesale, and to also make ourselves wholesale ready. So a little bit of everything within our group. Did I cover it all?
You did it. And
All
we've got a mushroom person, we've got some livestock, we've got produce, we got some fruit in there. And we're from around West Georgia, we're down in Middle Georgia, yeah. So that's that. Yeah. What about y'all? What about the other group?
Yeah, well, I asked in the group if anyone wanted to speak, and no one jumped, but I'll try again. Does anyone in our group want to represent what we said? I can also do it if no one wants to. Okay, I'll go ahead. Mostly folks were talking about something they hope to get out is just like when it becomes worth it, especially to like make the drive into Atlanta, because folks do want to access that market generally, but if it's a 2-hour drive on a Tuesday versus like, and maybe people are going in for markets on the weekends, it doesn't always feel like it makes sense. And we had a good representation of berries and pecans or pecans, however we want to say it, some mixed veggies and some row crops. We've got some people from the Athens area, from the Metro Atlanta area, Sparta, and Sapelo Island. So a good smattering of folks.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kayla. All right, so we're gonna dig in and let me change my view so I can look at the presentation. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little 15-minute presentation. I just want to let y'all know that it's a lot of information. So don't feel as if you have to absorb everything just now. And if you can walk away with 1 or 2 things, that's great. We're here for you. I'm here and available, and I'll share my information. And if you have any questions, just write them down and we can possibly cover them in the Q&A later. All right. So when we talk about marketing channels, we are talking about retail, we are talking about wholesale, and for the farmer, those mean 2 different things. So what we're going to cover today is wholesale. Or what I'm going to cover today is wholesale. So what that means is restaurants, that means distributors, that means food hubs, a grocery store, a box program similar to something in the same vein as what Fresh Harvest offers, or even other farmers who are supplementing for their CSA boxes. Okay, so when we're looking at these things, we're looking at the pros and cons, and I don't really like to call them cons so much, but they're just considerations. So the difference is, you all probably weigh them out, and when you're thinking about whether or not you want to do retail or wholesale. Ideally, you'd be able to do a little bit of both, and it would fit within your weekly schedule and your flow, and you wouldn't feel tight as far as your weekly flow goes. The reason why we want to have different revenue streams is because it gives you diversity, and it gives you how do you say that? You're more resilient, right? If you have money coming from a lot of different places. I know people who relied really heavily on restaurants. When COVID hit, what are you going to do? It's really hard. So diversifying your revenue stream is really important. Some of the pros of wholesale, because we're going to be focusing on that again today, is you can move a lot of quantity if you need to. You don't need to necessarily focus on marketing once you have you don't see? You don't? Hold on, let me see what is happening. I'm not presenting. Am I not presenting? No,
I think for the breakout rooms.
Okay, well then that's good. I only went through one slide. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so now we know, folks. Let me see. Bear with me. Okay. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, cool. Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Ashley. Ashley poked me on my phone. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, so yeah, so you can move a lot of quantity. Now we can all read this. What are some of the things you should think about? What are the things that might happen? You think maybe there's less money per item? It depends, right? You have to know your numbers. If you're moving a lot of quantity and you're doing it in one go, it might actually come out in the wash, honestly. So what are some other things? Maybe you're not necessarily connected to the eater. What if it kind of takes a little different skill set, right? When you go to the market, you can kind of like put whatever you have out on the table. Whereas with wholesale or with restaurants, you have to kind of know, you have to communicate, and you have to have an ongoing communication. There could be a longer wait for payment depending on who you work with. And you also might be required to have GAP certification or other certifications. All right, next. So I'm going to quickly talk about restaurant sales because I know we're going to cover that just a little bit. The pros of restaurant sales is, you know, sometimes depending on the product, you can get as much money for it as you do retail. If it's something that the chefs want, maybe you like the vibe of going into the restaurant, you feel cool, they're cool. It's fun. You get to talk to other people who handle the stuff that you grow, and there's this creative energy around it. Also, depending on how you harvest, you might not have leftovers, whereas market you would. This is also very true with wholesale. I mean, that is 100% true. You're not going to have leftovers because you're harvesting to order. The cons, you know, restaurants come in and out of business. You know when that restaurant stops ordering or it starts dipping. Are they going to close? What's the energy? Is the chef going to move? There's also a very, I would say, like a lot of restaurants have a very rigorous quality control standard. So let's look at the next one. Oops. All right. What about wholesale? So wholesale, big sales with not a lot of fuss. Maybe you don't have to deliver. Maybe you do. These folks tend to be reliable. And you don't have to hold their hands. Like you really don't. These people, this is their business. They know it. It's, you know, very minimal explaining and hand holding there. Again, you have to understand how much your cost is, and the cost should also include what it means for you to drive and sit at a market for 8 hours, because that is a cost. Also, you should know how many times you go to each product, how much packaging, you know, farmers market versus wholesale. There's less packaging. Maybe you're not going to be a rock star, right? Or maybe you are. I mean, Zach, Fresh Harvest has a picture of the farmers on the side of their truck. So it kind of depends, right? Okay, so when you farm and you deal with wholesale or restaurants, you definitely have to keep records, right? And honestly, the record keeping is part of the job of farming, I would say. So why does it matter for wholesale or restaurants specifically? You need to understand how you can give consistent supply. And the way you're going to do that is by understanding how many plants or how many, you know, how many animals or whatever, this can translate, you know, to mushrooms, to anything, how much you harvest and you know, move, you need to move the same amount or somewhere in between, like on that spectrum on a consistent basis. So if you have records of that, it's really easy to understand the ebbs. It's more obvious to understand the ebb and flow of demand. You also, what will help you understand how long something is in the ground and how much labor you put into it. So when Zach or Neil call you and say, hey, like, how long do you think till this is ready? Or you can call them and say, hey, I know I have this coming down the line. It'll be ready in a couple of weeks. That's because you know when you planted it. It also will allow you to stagger your workload, and thusly your harvest will be staggered and the pressure to move stuff in one big push will be staggered. It also allows you to tell people who work for you on your farm where to go harvest stuff. I would say you should always write that down when like you're telling someone, hey, go out to field, whatever, and go harvest this. Write down the field and write down what you want them to harvest because they're going to forget. And if you want them to do 3 or 4 things, they're definitely going to forget. And then recording and record keeping is really good to understand exactly how much you have for when you go into these conversations with anybody, really, when you create an availability list. All right. So this is an example of some record keeping. Some of y'all who were on the thing on Tuesday saw this. This on the left side is the notebook. This is the holy notebook. Every page looks like this more or less. So this is the box. You have the restaurants on the right. So this is what happens when you walk out into a field and you say, okay, what am I going to give to my CSA and what else do I need to move to the restaurants, to the whatever. And right beside that, that fennel right there, you could have the pounds or how many cases, but I didn't do that. On the right side, this document is, it serves a couple of purposes. It is the document that I refer to when I would make an invoice, but it is also the document that I use to make sure that I harvested everything for that restaurant. So you see the restaurants are broken down, the weights are broken down, the quantities, and then it's slashed through once it's done. And then once the whole restaurant is taken care of, you slash through the entire restaurant. Then you go take that document, you walk over to your computer and you write the invoice. All right. Talked about a little bit on Tuesday, and I'm not going to go super into it, but this is kind of a way to like spatially think about your farm. If you have a farm that's 1 to 4 acres and it's highly diversified, then you're probably less likely to sell to someone who is looking for large quantities of 1 or 2 things, right? So if your farm looks like this pie down here on the bottom right, I'm going to go to the next thing just for an example. If you look at these potential restaurants, this is based off of the items they need in the menu, on their menus. This also could be apply to someone like Common Market or Fresh Harvest, depending on how big that company is and how much they need and how many farmers they have, right? So it's just a way to think about it. This example to me really reminds me of thinking about someone like Farm Burger, who is a burger joint. And so their restaurant looks more like restaurant number 3 or 4, right? So they don't have a lot of items on their menu, but they go through a lot of volume. So unless your farm on the left side is a giant pie I don't know if it would be a great fit. So that's just something to think about too. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but it kind of happens without you thinking about it, like the matchmaking. All right. So just talking about availability list, this is on the left side is an example of an availability list that I used, and it changed every week, and it was really simple. There wasn't, I didn't ever say anything like, how are you doing? Hope you're doing great. How's your baby? Blah, blah, blah. I just sent the list. And then they had a day. Well, I sent it on Mondays, and then they had till Tuesday at noon to respond. And the ones who responded faster were given a little bit more priority. Some tips around availability lists. You should be a little conservative when you walk out into the field and say, okay, I think I have this much. Be a little conservative until you get really good at knowing how much you have. And then once you kind of know that you have a handle on your quantities, you can be a little more aggressive with what you offer, right? You also need to understand if your customers are going to be consistently ordering from you. It'll help you understand what they're going to buy volume wise. So like you also want to reward this, like you want to prioritize these restaurants or these wholesale folks. Like if they're consistently ordering from you every week, no matter what you have, then they're really great customers and you know how they're going to act. And again, like that goes back to tiers. So like people who order from you all the time, you know, you can tell them that you can tell people that that's how they get availability increased, is if they do order from you all the time. And then I did just want to say, if you have a small amount of something, I would pick the folks that you really like and I would just call them. Because generally if it's something that's new in the season or something that's, there's not a lot of it, then you don't want to put it on the availability list and have it get, you know, taken up quickly. Also, don't over communicate. I mean, you can communicate, you want to have clear communication, but if you're talking to someone like 5 or 6 times, I don't know, I'd be interested to hear from Zach, maybe like what the communication, when communication is like a little overboard and there's no bandwidth. But I think that, you know, 5 or 6 times is a lot, right? So just be choicey with when you communicate. And then I would also say, if they don't order for 3 or 4 weeks, you should probably take them off the list. This on the left is an example of another farm and their availability list. So you can tell they're like, I mean, I think this is a great availability list. It just depends on your personality, you know, like this is what we have coming down the line. Again, it gives you, they give you the date, the time window. There's a minimum. So they have a minimum, but it says we can work with you, you know, if you need it. And then on the right is a picture of a harvest list. So as orders start coming in, you could, the 10, the 24, the 36, those numbers are all case counts. So like 10 pounds, 10 pounds of turnips or 20 pounds of turnips. Well, we've got a box of each. So this is a way to just hand this to somebody that works for you or write it down for yourself and go out in the field and knock all of that out. Okay, we're gonna get to packaging strategies. Where am I? Okay, I've got a little bit more time. I hope everyone's hanging in there. I feel like rushed. This was like a really long webinar, or this was a really long conference session that just got like hyper condensed down. So here's an example of some packaging. So these on the left are wax boxes from Southern Container Corps. we would just buy pallets of them, 3/4 bushel, half a bushel, and 1 1/9 bushel. And so you definitely want to make sure what you're carrying your product in protects your product, right? So sometimes like bags are okay, like just loose bags, but sometimes when you have a bunch of stuff in a loose bag, it's going to get bruised in transit, right? So like boxes really help. And then you can put the bag inside the box. And when you get there, you can take the bag out and take your box with you if you want. On the right are some clamshells for squash blossoms. All right. We're going to talk about really fast, not really fast, but kind of fast, cleanliness. So cleanliness is king, right? These green lugs on the left are freaking awesome. Those, we harvest everything, you clean it, you like pull all the dirty leaves off when you harvest, and then you want to wash them as quickly as possible so the dirt gets off of them, right? So, you know, people eat with their eyes. You want consistency and size. And that's also like for meat as well. And then, you know, having stuff that's fresh is important. I also wanted to say, like on the right, this chard bunch, if you harvest a bunch of stuff in your field and you bunch it like this, and then you hold it for 1 or 2 days, you can cut the ends off and put that in a box, and it's okay. But you don't want to have like the ends of your chard brown, right? So those are kind of things that you want to think about. And it also is really helpful with chard to harvest it and bunch it in the field if you need to. It's easier to wash that way. On the left side is a picture of us harvesting chives. We were bunching those in the field. And in any case, no matter what you do, you want to minimize your handling, right? So every time you touch a product, it degrades the quality of the product, right? So on the right side, you see these harvest bins. These little white trays with the pulp pints actually fit perfectly into that green lug that you saw for the turnips. So we're actually harvesting the strawberries directly into these pulp pints, and then we're putting towels over them once they go into the walk-in cooler. All right, this is an example of the packaging room. Yes, I will send you a link to the lugs for sure. This is an example of the packaging room. So when you do packaging, you definitely want to have everything close to you. You want to have everything ideally at waist level so that you're not bending over and turning a lot. And then you want to ideally know, and this could go for Howard, I'm thinking about you too, or Maurice, like you want to streamline the packaging so that one person is doing one thing and the other person is doing another, right? So we have Jorge brought in, he's bringing in all of this stuff, and then you have, and he's like right in front of those blue bins, and then you have Christine on the right, who is tagging and labeling all of the boxes and ticking off that piece of paper that you saw before. And so if you're just a one-person show, like Vesterfield, what you want to do in that case is maybe you want to harvest everything and get it to a cool temperature if there's like a heat situation, and then go and package everything rather than taking something from the field, packaging that, going back out into the field, packaging that. And that also prevents getting dirt everywhere. So this is just a little, something else to think about. I really like the soy deli sheet papers on the bottom of wax boxes because there's holes in the wax boxes. And then also like bio bags are great for lining your boxes as well. All right. Here's another example of labeling. You have to think about with meat, if you have labels on the meat and it's cold, you have to think about that. If you have flowers, you want to put the labels on the buckets, or you can put the labels on the sleeves. All right. And now I am going to pass the torch to Neil.
Thanks, Lauren.
That was kind of fast, sorry. Okay.
Cool. Wait, let me get my notes up as well. Cool. Yeah, and I already introduced myself and gave you a little bit about Common Market. I run all the procurement and logistics here. Yeah, if you wanted, that's perfect. Go to that one. So, like I said earlier, Common Market, we're a nonprofit food distribution company, and so what that means is we work on two sides of the value chain, kind of in a regional food system. You know, or we serve two communities. You know, our mission, our values, and our board hold us to these standards to serve our farm partners and to serve the communities that are consuming the food as well. And so that is mainly what drives our organization. And whenever we make decisions, that's kind of like the top line of decision making is what are we doing to impact the farms and the communities we work in. And so, and the biggest, like I said, it says in our mission, kind of the biggest part of that in our regional food hub is that we are connecting kind of the urban and the rural communities, or kind of the peri-urban communities, so who's specifically around the metro area or urban area, that is the impact that they're growing, that they're eating, that they're whatever they're doing is kind of dependent on each other. So like I said, we started in Philly. We expanded to Georgia, and we're now in Houston as well. I believe we're like 4 or 5 years old in the Atlanta market. And the way we do this is we serve anchor institutions, and that involves a lot of different things, which I'll get into in a few more slides. But what we take on is that we want to understand and kind of foster the market in those anchor institutions to get better food into them, and that's kind of the simple part of it. By improving the food and nutrition among those communities that rely on those institutions, and things like schools, hospitals, community organizations, people that rely on those organizations for their food and nutrition, trying to help give opportunities to get good food in there and to serve the farms as well. And obviously, where we exist is to lower the barriers and provide the infrastructure between, kind of as the gap between those two. If you want to go to the next slide, Ashley. I'm going to start my little timer too, just to give myself. Cool. Yeah. And so, like I said, that where we exist mainly is, we try to provide the infrastructure needed to connect these public and private institutions to our regional sustainable farms. And so I kind of listed just a few things of the main parts of what the infrastructure that we provide. Food safety is a big one. It's probably our biggest. I would say everything else falls underneath that. To get to work with institutions on a large scale usually involves working with people that have worked with distributors like Cisco, Royal, the kind of bigger institutions that have a much higher quality assurance program. And so what we provide is we are a SQF qualified facility, which is just a certain food safety scheme. It's a fairly high standard, and it's one of our biggest tools to get into these institutions and these food service providers that sometimes they can't work with the distributor unless they're SQF or similar certified. And for us, that mainly involves infrastructure, which is included in the cold chain. And so we have a 6,000 square foot facility here in East Point, and we have I don't know the square footage of our coolers, but it's 3 giant walk-ins to maintain, kind of, and freezers as well. And we also have 3 refrigerated trucks, kind of large box trucks that we use to maintain the cold chain as well. And then we also provide marketing resources. So I think, like Lauren mentioned, that when you sell to a distributor, you either don't have that connection to the consumer, or it's it's multiple people removed. And so we provide marketing resources like photos, videos, and that highlight the farms. And a lot of our partners are looking for that, especially I think now a lot of we have hospitals that want to single source their food. And so we provide some kind of the help to do that. Quality control is another large one, I think, that falls under food safety that we provide. And as a distributor, we have to maintain the quality before it gets to the customer. So one thing we rely on our farmers, things like we'll talk about in a second, but more food safety, cleanliness, kind of delivery, and then shelf life as well. So we kind of are a big part of that, because like Lauren said, if things are coming out of your fields and then coming to us, how long can they stay in our coolers, and what does that look like when we get it to a cafeteria that is going to maybe need it for another 2 weeks or something like that. So that's just something that we consider and have to take on. And I talked about this in our breakout session as well. Logistics is a big part. A lot of people mentioned that they're hours outside of kind of this out of Atlanta, which is how agriculture looks around here. And so one of the barriers, that we work through and then we provide the infrastructure for is that through our trucking, we can pick up on farms. And it really depends on the farm and the location. But we do have that availability, and it's not perfect for every single farm partner we work with, because sometimes they're already running stuff in, and that works out better on both ends. But we do have that ability, and we know we're making certain runs to certain areas weekly, and so we can move through that. And that's just a little bit about what we provide. Ashley, if you want to go to the next page, that'd be great. Yeah, and then so I wanted to give a brief list of our kind of very basic farmer requirements that we require to work with us. And so first one is located in a 250-mile radius, which I believe everyone on this call probably does. And so the next one is very much more of a loose requirement. Sustainable growing practices. I know that, but we do take it on a case-by-case basis, which I think that really varies from, like I said, we don't have any certification requirement. Many of our farms are certified organic or certified naturally grown, but also many of them aren't, and either maybe working towards a certification, or that's not something that's part of their practices. We do require insurance, which $1 million, I think, looks like a big number, but usually those types of insurance policies are fairly small to take out. But we also provide a $5 million insurance policy. So if something were to happen, if we call something on a large scale, that we would all be covered under that. And then we do require a food safety program in place. We realize that our ideal place for that is a GAP certification. And then, but we realize that that's a fairly large step to take on as a beginning farmer or a smaller farmer. And so we also work with people that are working towards a GAP certification. And so we've worked with I think probably with Georgia Organics, but with other technical people that provide technical resources to help with GAP certification and understanding and kind of a food safety plan on the farm. And what that also includes, I think, naturally, is a post-harvesting handling and packing system, which Lauren already talked about, so I won't really go into any more on that. And then our packaging requirements, which aren't listed on here, like Lauren said, we or showed the wax boxes. That is the pretty much the only way we can receive product in, and that is mainly from a food safety perspective, that it needs to be in new packaging. If it's produce, if it's something different like meat or that's packaging within packaging, it doesn't have to be in wax boxes, but any produce needs to be in the wax boxes. And we have a program where we can buy those in bulk, and we can sell them at a kind of lower price. And so we realize that that's another kind of infrastructure thing that's needed. And then also we do require labeling, like Lauren showed in her pictures. It doesn't have to be extensive, but it needs to be a traceability label. And so usually that includes the name of the farm, the date that it was packed on, and any contact information. And that's kind of the bare minimum. And then there's more and more after that. You want to go to the next slide, Ashley? Cool. And like I said, we'll go over our customer base a little bit. And I think this is important. A lot of times, just understanding, like you said, if you choose to do wholesale, where your food is ending up, and kind of how that impact has on you as a grower, and what you're looking for. So our main hospital base or customer base are hospital systems, private schools. We do work with a little bit of public schools, but public schools have naturally been a very hard place for us to break into in this area. Our other organizations in Philly and Houston do a lot more of that. Universities are very, Emory, the kind of Georgia Tech, those universities we work with a lot. And all of those systems typically have a food service provider, which is an external company. So like they might have Emory has like a sustainability group that's through the university that is pushing and trying to change the practices of their food service provider, which does all the actual procurement of the food. So when we're selling, we're actually selling to the food service provider. And then municipal offices like city of Atlanta, other cities or counties as well. And then, like I said, community organizations are our biggest group that has changed completely over kind of COVID. And I kind of wanted to highlight a few partnerships that we work with. One is Grady Hospital, which is the biggest public hospital here in Atlanta. They have a food as medicine program, and so they have different clinic sites, and so it's a grant funded program, and they can purchase a very beautiful arrangement, like different amount of vegetables from us for that week, and then it's their patients that are coming to. It's a very similar. They're used as like food bank centers, and so it's their patients that are coming and getting these vegetables as well. And so that happens every 2 weeks for us, and the location changes. Another big partnership that we had through COVID was it was called Welcome Me Atlanta, but it was the city of Atlanta's immigration offices that did a funded program where they moved a lot of food relief through Latin communities, specifically in Atlanta, and a few outside, I believe. And so we were partnered with them to provide them produce, eggs, and meat and dairy. That was a very, very fun or interesting partnership because they took on what the community needed. They took a full story of what people wanted there, and then they came to us and said, "Can you get it for us?" And so those are just a couple that I thought I've worked with recently that I wanted to highlight and let you guys know the type of people that we're working with. And then I've got a few minutes left. Yeah, okay, we're still doing good. I wanted to kind of, if you want to go to the next slide, Ashley, sorry. I wanted to kind of at least give you a reference of our journey over the past year and a half and how our business has changed through COVID. Before COVID, we were big part of what we were doing was selling direct to restaurants or distributing to restaurants, a lot of smaller restaurants, but then also these institutions as well. And obviously, when all that happened, everything, when a year ago now, everything mostly shut down. And we obtained a contract through the USDA to build boxes, essentially produce boxes, and you can kind of see the metrics on the screen. We were building these boxes between like 10 to 16,000 a week, and they were going specifically to food relief. So many areas in Atlanta, all over Georgia, and we were sending them out all over the place. And so that gave us a really incredible opportunity, I think, during this time when no one really knew where you were going to be sending your produce or anything, to rely on our farm partners that we had in place. And through the funding that was available, we really were able to, we weren't asking for donations. Everything was getting paid for. This was very much a huge program that I think impacted our organization a lot and made us grow a lot. But then also that funding ended because as federal funding does. And so we kept the box program going. It's in a less diminished, it's a less quantity now, but we rely on many of those community organizations that we work with. And they have the funding that's allowed us to continue this, where they're purchasing the boxes through us. And so just kind of where we're at to be transparent on that is, a lot of this work relied on federal funding, and we're all in that very interesting phase of maybe we'll find out more information in the next few weeks. So that is a great opportunity where we were able to just honestly, from what I hear, again, I wasn't on the team, but I was here, purchase as much as we could, as much as people could provide for us. So the really good opportunity. And I think I've got the last thing I wanted to kind of close up on is where we stand. One of our last things that we have tried to do, and is part of my position, is to really work through the planning with our farm partners in the off season, and kind of use our abilities to track our metrics and to understand what we're selling to our customers, to take a little bit of the guesswork out of it, or a lot of the guesswork. And pre-COVID, I think we were getting to a situation where we could maybe guarantee purchases, and now we're kind of back to square one, because it's very hard for anyone to forecast right now. But that's something that we definitely push a lot, is planning ahead and kind of moving through that. So I guess that is it for my little presentation. And I hope, if you feel like Common Market is a good fit for you, then that gave you some more information on what we do.
Thank you so much, Neil. And we will provide everyone on here, with information on how to reach both Neil and Zach, and some information that they've given us to pass along to y'all as well. So Zach, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to start just by saying, first of all, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what y'all do. The Fresh Harvest beginnings, initially I wanted to be someone who grew food, and I realized, man, this is really hard. And then Fresh Harvest is what came out of the pivot of that. So respect the heck out of what you do. Would love to talk further afterwards about how to work together, for sure. But kind of starting with, all right, what is Fresh Harvest? It's kind of that bin, that picture right there, those green bins. We only deliver to people's homes. So our lens, our medium for moving food is through those bins, and they go right to people's doorsteps, just like that little cute picture right there with those slippers. So we our whole goal with those bins is to represent the food of the growers that we work with. You can see it's not all just produce. We move some other stuff too: meat, milk, eggs, locally made grocery items. All of our the food that we buy from our farmers is certified organic. There are a couple exceptions to that with specific like practices that we review. We go out to those farms, so there are a few exceptions to that. But those are the farms that we are working with every week, and our goal is to, like I kind of said in the little intro, is to expand the reach, expand the sale, expand the opportunity for the growers that we work with. That's kind of the second picture coming up next. These are our trucks. This is how we do that. It's pretty simple. Our warehouse is just a big assembly line that when those totes all get packed up, then they get put on one of these trucks and they drive all over town each day based on just the customer gets a delivery day based on their location in and around the city of Atlanta. And then if you can go to the next one here real quick, when I say we, the team, this is a representation, a small representation of our team. We are based in Clarkston, which is a refugee resettlement city, which is one of the huge reasons we're here, is just to provide job opportunities for folks in and around Clarkston. I live here in Clarkston, have loved it a long time. And our team, we're so thankful, has grown a lot over the past year. Obviously, what we all are probably aware of at this point is that food delivery in all shapes and sizes increased in demand throughout 2020. And so we were, thankful to be able to, hire more folks in our community to do that, to do the work necessary to provide that. So we partner up with farmers every single week. We're texting, we're emailing, we're talking. When I say we, it's myself plus really one or two other people who are, building out our orders each week. I love that the title of this is Selling High-End Wholesale. I think I'm pretty sure I stole this from you, Lauren, when we were talking on the phone one time. You're like, yeah, I just think of you guys as high-end wholesale. Ever since then, and that was years ago, that's what I say that we are. So I stole that and have used that phrase many times. What I mean by high-end wholesale when I'm talking to maybe a new grower that we're potentially going to work with is like it's a model that's built around the supply, the grower, you, rather than a model that's only responsive to customer demand. So what does that look like? The discussions are around your crop planning. They're around your budgeting needs and therefore the predictability of orders coming, which we can talk about more in a minute, and your volumes. So we work with farms of all different sizes. Like, just to give a glimpse, I literally receive between 10 and 20 texts of availability lists and some emails too every Monday from different folks. And on those availability lists, they may be 3 different items and anywhere from 10 to 100 of each of those items, or it may be 10 different items and they've got 200 to 500 of them. And then some folks just say, hey, I'm only selling you tomatoes and we're going to do thousands of pounds every week. So we work with all different size growers each week. And the reason for that is we want to be the ones to adapt. We know kind of the logistical kind of people in the middle. And so our goal is to take the people eating the food and the people growing the food and make as tight of a connection as possible. And doing what we do, hopefully well. I bring up this picture of Ashley from Rogers Greens and Roots because her scenario was pretty cool and unique. We actually sat down at a coffee shop before she ever started RGR, and she said, hey, what do you guys need? I haven't put a seed in the ground yet, but what do you guys need? What would it be like to work with you guys from the start? And the reason that was so cool to me, and we still work with her every single week and her crew. The reason that was so cool to me is because the purpose of Fresh Harvest, and one of the deepest, like, man, this is what we hope to do well, is from the moment that a seed is put in the ground to be able to say, I know where that's going. None of us can predict the weather. None of us can predict the future, all that for sure. And I'm not claiming to, and I know way less about it than you do. But what if when you put it in the ground, I wish I had like a carrot here as a prop or something. What if when you put it here in the ground, you knew on the other end, there it is, that's the one. When that started as seed, if you knew on the other end that it had a home and you knew what you were going to sell it for, that's our hope. And that's how we want to alleviate some of the lack of predictability and alleviate some of the pressure that is growing food well. Again, I'm a fan. I'm not one that pretends to know the ins and outs and the difficulties of all that, but that's our goal every week when we're talking with, when I say talking with, it's literal texts and emails every week with the different growers that we work with. The Fresh Harvest system, this kind of gets a little nitty gritty, but just before we go to the next picture, we do the same thing over and over and over again every week. Some could say it's boring. It's not, because there's a lot of stuff that comes up, but I've done the same thing for 8 years every week. And Lauren and some of the other folks we work with who are on this call, like, can be like, yeah, I've gotten that text from Zach a lot of times. So every Monday I reach out and say, hey, what's the availability looking like for next week? Sometimes the response is nothing. Talk to you in a couple weeks, a couple months, whatever. But then I take all the availability lists of all the different growers that we work with, and then I use those puzzle pieces to build the baskets for our customers. Those baskets for our customers, there's 12 different types. Every customer has to pick at least one. They can't just get milk. They've got to get produce, which is a huge, like, stake in the ground. We will always do this at Fresh Harvest because it's how you create predictability of system. And so if people don't want produce, don't order Fresh Harvest. That's fine. But that moment of getting all the availability lists from everybody, and now the puzzle pieces of building those 12 different baskets. Some we sell 100 of, some we sell 1,600 of, these different basket types. Then we say, hey, customers, people in and around Georgia, here's what you're getting by default from the growers that we work with next week. Now, you've got a period of time between Tuesday and Friday to customize it, do what you want. We don't want to put you in a box, but we don't want to put you in a box. Swap out, if you don't want the kale, swap it out for more collards. If you don't want the collards, swap it out for more sweet potatoes. Whatever they want to do, they can customize their orders. They can also add on to their orders other things. If they want more sweet potatoes, they can get 20 pounds of them if they want. Then on Friday, we lock all that up and say, okay, nothing changes now, because next week we're delivering all this. And hopefully, if our system's working right, every week there's nothing left in the cooler. We're not sitting on anything. We're not wasting anything. And so your produce that you bring to us, it goes to a customer that week. Because on Friday, we lock up the orders. That's what customers are going to get delivered that next week. We would then send you the sheet of, okay, we said we were going to order 100 kale, 100 collards, and 100 pounds of sweet potatoes or whatever. That's the final order. We're letting you know Friday, we're good to go. That's what then you would bring to us on Monday. After that, then we package it all up. We do all that and do the delivery, of course, to our customers that week. So again, the responsiveness of our system is built around the growers and not the appetites of consumers, which change all the stinking time anyway. So that's what we hope to do. And this picture that we've lingered on for a long time, that's just what we've done with Rogers as one example, or Woodland, or that we've done with other folks we work with. If you can go to the next one, I should have prompted while I was saying. So the one thing, these first two pictures on the left, our goal is to represent the growers we work with to our customers. So the point is to be an extension of what you do. Every week we have a harvest list. We say where everything's coming from. And that is what then customers get in their baskets. The reason I put up the daikon radish picture is because the goal is to kind of make the star of the grower and draw really close connections between the person standing in their kitchen with the daikon and the grower, just like you would at a farmer's market. So we're saying where those things are coming from. We want them to experience the produce that you've grown as you've grown it, and that they know it's coming from you. We work with 27 different farms on a weekly basis right now locally. We also bring in non-local produce every single week to fill out our baskets. But like I said at the beginning, a key metric is that 80% of everything we're selling is grown in Georgia every year. So the middle one, the reason the turmeric picture is our goal too, not that, I don't know who cares about social media, whatever, but our goal is to expand the actual reach and like impact of your brand too. So we post not in an effort to piggyback, but in an effort to expand the reach of the growers that we work with. So that then, and this happens all the time, then the customer will come and seek you out at the farmer's market you're at to buy more of this stuff, because they don't get a delivery from us every day. They're going to want more than what they can get from us on a weekly basis. So we hear all the time from growers like, oh, they came to the booth at the market because of getting a fresh harvest basket first. And that's totally the way we want it to happen. The picture on the right over there, that's Matt from Fry Farm. Another way we do this is through customer letters. Summer stinks, it's hot. And the whole point of like those letters right there is to connect the consumer who's buying his food every week and the farmer who's growing it. And so literally every year, I think in August, we do this promotion where our customers will send letters and we give them to farmers. So it's just another way. It's like we're trying to truly connect growers and consumers. One thing that I always just try to say with the ethics of Fresh Harvest is like this dependency is what we want. Like Fresh Harvest is not the brand we want to be without the growers we're working with. And so we are dependent. If we just bought the same organic stuff you can get at Kroger or wherever else from these larger distributors, if that's all we were doing is passing that off, then there's nothing sticky about our brand. And so our goal is to create this healthy dependability. And one way that we really want to do that is through crop planning and commitments to the growers that we work with. I can go into a lot more depth about that. Probably don't have enough time here, but the short version is every year, multiple times a year, but at least once a year with the growers we work with most regularly, we go out to the farm, we sit down over a cup of coffee and say, hey, how did it go last year? How much did we sell of this, that, and the other item? How'd the pricing structure work? And then like, what do we want to do next year? So I've had a boatload of these meetings, December, January, February, with the growers that we work with to say, hey, how do we get better at this in 2021? How do we sell more of your stuff? Or that item that we bought a lot of, did you make any money on it? Because if not, we shouldn't buy it anymore. So that's part of our rhythm too, is to do this crop planning again, because we want as much as we can to bring in some reliability, some predictability to the structure of how you budget around what you grow. If we can switch to the next picture, is there one more on there? Yeah, this is a picture of some of the farmers that we work with up there. Again, the communication point, like Lauren was saying, is so key. And we don't, from the start, say, hey, we have to, hear from you, buy from you every single week. There are some people, all these people in these photos we buy from the majority of the weeks of the year, some every single week. But some folks are just like, hey, when I have a bumper crop of kale, I'll call you and let you know, because I know you can take it and you'll want to move it for me. That's a role we can totally play. And maybe we only talk 3 times a year when that happens. But other folks, it's like, hey, I'm going to grow this crop for you specifically, you being Fresh Harvest customers. And we're going to set that aside, and I'm going to keep you posted, and I'm going to let you know when we're 3 weeks out, when we're 1 week out, and we've talked about pricing, and we're then saying, okay, those cherry tomatoes that are coming in, we've been planning on that, and we're going to put those in our baskets that are going to our customers. One example on there that I'm just reminded of as I look at this is with Crystal Organic Farm. Nicholas, I think, would laugh about this now, but we talked for a long time, Nicholas and I, before, like over a couple years before, he ever had enough to necessarily, want to sell to us. I think there's a miscommunication about how much we needed or something like that. But now it's like an every week thing. So he and I are talking each week, and we're bringing in great volumes of stuff from them. And they since have, only because of their own choice, decided, hey, we're going to scale back on some other things that we're doing because of the reliability of this outlet, which that's, his prerogative, how he wants to handle that. But that's the level of dependability that we want to be. So at the core, yeah, there's this communication, this back and forth, this trust that's built over time. But again, the piece of the pie, as we were looking at, we can be any version of size of slice of that. So one other thing, just to kind of conclude on, yes, this is the picture I wanted to go to. This is sort of what it looks like after bringing in the produce, or after talking about what's coming in next week. Then it's literally just brought to us in these reusable totes, and then we package everything up individually, pack everything individually, I should say, for our customers. Some items that are sensitive, like the greens, we will ask that those are packaged at the farm. Other things like these sunchokes, we do the bagging up ourselves. So that's kind of a blanket dive. I don't know if there are any other photos that I didn't hit. If we can scroll through a couple of those just as we wrap. Yes, this is the last one. Again, the point is to connect people over the food that they're either growing or eating. And this is our little garden here in Clarkston that we have, where we have folks out and connect customers with growers as well. And obviously times in the world where that's allowed. So anyway, thank y'all. That kind of concludes high-end wholesale pitch there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zach. That was a great presentation. All right, everyone. I think what we're going to do now, instead of doing breakout rooms, because it takes a little bit of time to kind of break out and get back in and break out, we're just going to open it up for questions for Zach or Neil or myself. Yeah, so if y'all want to show your faces or anything like that, open it up, and you can just, or you can chat. You can chat the question if you don't want to talk as well.
All right, I go. I know I had a conversation with Neil. He's we're working on hopefully beef, moving some beef. But Zach, you did mention that you provide meat in your packaging, and I'm looking for a way to move beef. Could I become a partnership? Do you see anything with moving beef, helping me move beef?
Yeah. So we sell, various cuts of beef every single week. We do have a couple different folks that we're currently working with, but would love to talk about how that would work, adding in for sure. So I would love to connect you with Joe here at Fresh Harvest coming out of this, because he's the one who sets up all of our non-produce supply. So, and he's always looking for new folks to work with and how to make sure that our supply chain is really resilient and diverse from just coming from different folks. So yeah, I would love to chat about that and get into kind of the nitty gritty of it.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. I can send you his contact.
All right.
Hey, Zach, I got a question. Earlier you mentioned that the farmers would give you product in the baskets or in the crates, and then they would bring it to the warehouse, or you guys pick it up. And so are you guys leaving crates at the farm and then just swapping out crates every time you?
Yes, you were breaking up a little bit. Are you saying the reusable tote, like the one that the farms were bringing in?
Yeah. In the picture with the sun chokes.
Yep.
I thought you had said that you were picking up those things with the produce in them.
Yep. Yeah. So that the sunchokes, they actually did come from Woodland in that picture. So those green totes, they're lugs that Lauren was talking about, it's those exact ones. And so when they deliver those to us, they bring them in those green lugs, and they have enough of those to where they leave them with us. And we then pack the sunchokes all week and send those to our customers, obviously. And then the next week when they come back, we've got them stacked there. They have their name on them and all that, and then they can take them back. So we, from a packaging standpoint, a lot of farmers now are using reusable totes like that because they kind of have a feel for how many of those we would account for each week and have figured out, man, that's going to be cheaper than buying cardboard boxes over and over again and beating them up. And so, yeah, that is absolutely possible. Also, we get a lot of cardboard in each week. And so we recycle what's left, but first come, first serve too on using up the cardboard. So we have farms every week who pull through the wax box because we don't need the wax boxes. They grab the wax boxes and take and reuse those. Again, that's not what's going to our customer. Our customer is getting everything in our own totes that we pack, but the stuff back and forth from growers, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
This is for both of y'all, but I'll start with Neil. Can you just walk through a little bit of what the process looks like when you are starting a new relationship with a farmer? Yeah, just like the logistical and like infrastructural steps to that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I have just brought a new farm out of Alabama on, and so our first step, I think, overall is just like talking and see if it's a good fit, and kind of understanding what our needs are. Usually that centers around quantity, and figuring out if they have enough for us or when it's going to happen. And so and that just was more in the sense of like, is it worth it for them to kind of be going into this relationship? We can kind of take different levels of quantity. It just depends on if it's worth it for the grower. And then kind of to like lock it in place once we've decided that we would like to purchase as well, that it works out. We do have a bit of paperwork, because that's always involved in food safety documentation, that we require. It's a questionnaire. It's any certifications that you have. We need the documentation for that, and then an insurance, and then our I think one thing I forgot to mention is that since we are a multi-city kind of unit, our finance all happens at our place in Philly, and so we do have like 15-day payment terms with our farmers. So we don't give checks on, when you walk in the door, but we do have 15-day terms on that. And then once all the paperwork and all that stuff is lined up, we don't have a specific day right now that we're doing like availability list or purchasing. It really is up to the farm. And so because we're like, I think probably similar to Zach, we're doing this almost every day where we're bringing in what's available. And so we kind of take into when their availability list or what they're growing and what they're looking to move. And then, like I said, kind of included in that is figuring out if we're going to be picking up from the farm or if they're going to be delivering to us, and kind of what days work out like that. I would say right now we're mostly receiving. We're receiving every single day, but biggest chunks of our receiving are either on Monday, the beginning of the week, or end of the week. But it depends on, totally depends. We can receive in the middle of the week as well. I would say, yeah, that's the little bit. Any other questions on that?
Not from me.
Yeah, did you want me to hit on that same thing? Okay. Yeah, so the initial conversation, kind of similar to what Neil was saying, just about, hey, what does your farm want to do? What is your availability roughly gonna look like? What kind of pricing are we talking? Those kind of things are part of the initial conversation before we're buying anything. And that's just to kind of feel out, hey, where do both of us, where do we want this to go? And then talking about the certification is also a good point. Like like I said, we work with mostly, not 100%, but mostly certified organic growers. Anybody that isn't certified organic is C&G. So that is something we require. And then as soon as we have that initial conversation, then it's just like getting into those availability swings. So it might be that we have a conversation one week and then the next Monday we're talking about availability lists and what we can be purchasing, so the turnaround is really quick, and our baskets change every week. So we're able to adapt the puzzle, right, every single week. So we would just add your list to the puzzle and begin buying hopefully as much of it as possible. So yeah, it's the setup is pretty basic and simple.
Thank you.
So we're not talking contracts at all, are we? It's really kind of just like verbal agreements that, like, when it's ready, we'll come and buy.
Yep, for us, yeah, there's no contracts involved at all. The only thing on our end that we would provide or want to provide is just, hey, if we've been working together for a long time and then we're at or however long, to kind of build that trust, then if you were to say, hey, I want to grow this one item, go bigger on it, can you move it? Then it's like, hey, we're penciling it in the schedule and we, Fresh Harvest, are committing to buy it. But to be like, hey man, where's those, grape tomatoes we talked about, that kind of holding to or contracted, we don't do those.
Neil?
Yeah, I was going to say we do have a not a contract for purchasing, but it's just a contract to be in business together. It's just called a producer agreement, and that's something where we lay out the requirements that we have, and like the things I already talked about, and then it includes things like I think one thing I know that's in the producer agreement is that if you have customers that you're already working with, like if you're already working with school systems or restaurants or something like that, like we're not here to step on those toes, and we want you to continue those relationships as well. So it's just putting out there that if there's any relationships already that you have that are existing, that you acknowledge them, and that basically tells us that we won't ever be in that arena as well. And so that's the only not a buying contract, like I said, but it's just kind of a contract that says we're doing business together.
I have one question. I have one question for both of y'all. Okay, Zach, is there a type of packaging or form that you receive stuff that just doesn't work? Like it just does not work and you don't want that? And then for Neil, my question is there something that you don't need, like variety wise? So Zach and then Neil.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that sticks out to me is any greens, any sensitive item that is not dried effectively. A lot of times issues we run into are, hey, I want to sell this salad mix because we can move a lot of salad mix, and salad mix turns quick and you can make good money on it, by the way. And so if if you're bagging that up, then if there's any moisture in there, it just goes bad so quick in a matter of days. So making sure, however you rig up the spin cycle and the dryer laundry machine kind of setup or whatever it is that you use, that those are getting nice and dry. And then also just a thing to kind of add is there is flexibility in sizing on bunches of things. So, it's not like we only sell one exact size and weight of kale. That changes each week sometimes depending on where it's coming from. So that's another way to kind of break things up and think through pricing and flexibility too.
Thanks.
I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but it's always a balance for us of what our customers are looking for versus and trying to educate and help them out. But obviously, like I said, we work with institutions, and so a lot of the product that moves through those places is not what you would see at a farmer's market. And so we typically move a lot more of kind of your standard varieties and nothing kind of like specialty varieties or anything like that. I think we are developing relationships and continuing to change the purchasers, kind of introduce new products to the purchaser. So for us, I don't want to get too simple with it, but it is very much like your meat and potatoes of something that a kid is going to understand how to use, or that someone's going to see in a cafeteria or in a box, something like that, and not understand how to use. And a lot of times we partner with organizations that do share more of that. And so a lot of the community organizations we work with will provide, like if we want to provide like radishes in their boxes or something like that, provide some education on how to use that. So that's not necessarily our forte. So that was a long way about that. Yeah, we're definitely more of the simple varieties but not, I can't think of like one specific thing that we wouldn't have.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know some farms that work with you all, and like as we were talking about diversifying your different revenue streams, which is always good for resiliency on the farmer side. The farmers that I know that work with you also sell to, they sell kind of niche products to restaurants, and they sell at the farmers market, and they'll sell to Zach. And then with y'all, they'll move a lot of sweet potatoes or zucchini or squash, because squash, for example, is high volume, short window, So like those are the things that as farmers you can think about for utilizing all of these partnerships that we're talking about right here. All right, well, does anybody have any more questions, or we'll give it 10 seconds and then
I do if there's one in.
Go ahead.
Okay, so common market is bulk boxes, right? So it would have to be like I don't know, like cases of items, and then fresh harvest is really kind of like however it's sold to the customer. So like you'll get like, oh well, we'll take 200 bunches or something like that. And then are there minimums to what exactly would an order be looking like at the lowest, at the smallest, I guess?
Yeah, I can go first. So for us, there are no minimums. It's all just like, hey, communication about, hey, can we buy enough to make it worth your time to bring it down this way? I wouldn't want to ever ask somebody to deliver, kind of chintzy amounts of stuff and it not be worth the money on y'all's end. But we do, so we receive the items from you, say it's potatoes, we receive the items in the bulk case and we do the individual packing up. But things like turnips and carrots and stuff like that, that you would sell at the market bunched, would need to be bunched for us too. So that's not to say every single thing you sell to us at all has to already be individually packaged up. We do that weighing and packaging on our assembly line all day long. But we're basically a repacker. We don't wash, cut, bunch in that sense, like the turnips and stuff for you, because that's not what we're certified to do. We literally take it out of the box and set it in ours. So if you've got sweet potatoes coming in 40-pound cases, we buy them in 40-pound cases. If you've got turnips coming in 24-count cases, we buy them in 24-count cases. And then we do the individual piecing up based on the customized order of the individual. Does that make sense? That hit what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to say I'm selling it in a case, you would say, all right, we'll take this many cases.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, you could be like, I've got 12 cases of turnips, 24-count bunches a piece. I've got 10 cases of sweet potatoes. I'd be like, sweet, I'll buy the case. I'm not going to then like, well, then I need 11 and a half cases of sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Or just round it
I
up
got you.
in that unit.
Yeah, and like you said, we only purchase in case sizes, but those case sizes can vary depending on what the grower is looking at. Like if you are selling in a 20-pound case, that's great. If it's a 40-pound case, like, yeah, we definitely have the flexibility to work with it. The main thing for us is that it has to come in the case, because then we have to turn around and like Zach said, he's a repacker. We're a distributor, so nothing essentially leaves the cases for us. And so, and as far as minimums go, we don't have any as well. If we're picking up from a farm, we are running trucking constantly. So so far we haven't had any minimums, where it doesn't make it worth it for us or for the farmer as well. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. More of it, if the order, same thing as I said, we don't order. We want to make sure it's worth it for you to do that order as well.
Thank you, guys. Also have a kind of broader question. Is there any importance placed on branding for packaging? So now, sometimes you buy specific boxes that have your logo on it, or plastic packaging. You got specialty items that go to restaurants and stuff like that. So if anybody's got any experience with that.
Yeah, so for us, we highly encourage that, because again, we want to get your brand to our customers. So like if you're doing microgreens and clamshells, or when you bunch up whatever it might be, and you have your way of tagging it that's got your logo on it or whatever, we would never rip that off and be like, oh, we don't want that in our brand. We would always like encourage that, because that, again, it just reinforces that harvest list that we send out anyway, and just proves to the customer like, hey, this is where this is coming from. Fresh Harvest doesn't claim to grow any of it. And so, yeah, the more like branding on any packaging, the better. It's not required. There are a couple of farmers we work with that do that for the more like the blueberries that we get from Laura. Sometimes those will come in, and have the packaging and the branding on them and stuff like that, which is great. But we don't require that.
Yeah, I would kind of on the same page. We do sell to retail outlets sometimes as well, and so typically, we're selling to someone that in a case that's going to open that case up and use everything in it. So that's why we have kind of our marketing resources where it's a mix of our branding and your branding that's getting to the final customer. But if we are doing like you said, blueberries or something that's going to be retail package size, definitely push branding on that, because a lot of times that could end up in someone's storefront fridge that they're people are grabbing and purchasing, or or in a grocery store or something like that. And so that definitely is. I think Howard has a great kind of retail packaging for his smaller mushrooms that I think looks great when we send those out to people as well.
Thank you.
Lauren, how do you feel like you get more restaurant business if you have like branded packaging?
Who are you asking that, Eli?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
You got some with the restaurant game, you know?
I don't think that I think that the like consistency in boxes and having it really easy to unpack and clean is like the main thing. Just it being clean and like super fresh, and having everything be facing one way so that when you pull it out, all the roots are on one side. You don't have to like have a bag they don't have to like unpack you when you get there. You can just drop the boxes and everything's labeled on the outside with what it is. Yeah.
But I'll just say, like, from my experience in the restaurant, if the chef places the restaurant orders and then like a sous chef unpacks it and you have your label on the box, and then eventually the sous chef is going to be doing the ordering, then like maybe that is a familiarity thing too, and like gets the line cooks involved a little bit too with the orders, versus like, I know some people would just bring like a huge thing of carrots and then you would kind of weigh it out unlabeled. And so I don't remember that farmer's name, like, but like Woodland Gardens like always had the boxes with the labels and everything, and so it was easy to understand. And unpacking, you would put where it's from like on the crate that you would keep in the walk-in, so then you could also tell the difference in the quality of the product too. And not every restaurant does that, I think, but I think it can make a difference.
Cool, thanks, Kayla. All right, everyone. Well, thank you, Zach, and thank you, Neil, for being on this webinar today. I hope you all got some good information. Wendy sent a chat question asking about follow-up with these two folks. And so we're gonna send y'all a follow-up email. In the chat, we just put a link to a survey. Could you all please fill out that survey? And if you're in Farm to Restaurant or Accelerator, I really need you to fill out the survey, and I'll send it to you until you fill it out. Yeah, so it gives us feedback, and then we can share that information with Zach and Neil and see if this was a worthwhile thing for y'all, for the farmers. And let me just share really fast this thing. Sorry, share screen. Link. Can y'all see that? I can't see you now. Can you see that?
Nope, we only see us. You're not presenting.
Oh, I'm not. I didn't do it. Okay, there. There. Well, this is the
There it goes.
The formality. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. So just stay tuned for look at the Good Food for Thought website for events that are going to come up throughout this year, and follow our Instagram for that as well. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you'll have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.